dust, thick enough to choke on. August 11th, 480 BC. You're standing in a corridor of rock barely wide enough for 20 men to stand shoulder to shoulder, staring at an army so large you can't see where it ends. The horizon has disappeared, replaced by banners, spears, shields stretching back for miles. Tens of thousands of warriors, maybe hundreds of thousands. Nobody knows for certain because nobody's ever seen an army this size before. They're not screaming. That's what gets you. They're just waiting, calm, patient, because they know what you know. That the math is simple, the kind of simple that doesn't require discussion. You're one of 300 Spartans. Behind you, maybe 7,000 Greek allies who showed up because somebody had to. In front of you, the entire Persian Empire. 2 million men, according to the scouts. Even if they're exaggerating by half, you're still looking at odds that make survival impossible. King Leonidas, 60 years old, white beard braided for battle, stands at the front of the Spartan line. He's not wearing a helmet. Wants the Persians to see his face, wants them to remember it when they tell stories about this day. He turns to look at his 300 and he's smiling. Not nervous bravado, not false confidence, genuine anticipation. Because Leonidas understands something the Persian king Xerxes will never comprehend. Sometimes the point isn't to win. The point is to make them pay so dearly for their victory that they question whether it was worth it. Behind the Spartan lines, Greece is burning, city after city falling to Persian invasion. Athens evacuated, refugees flooding south. The only thing between total conquest and Greek survival is this narrow pass called Thermopylae, the hot gates, named for the thermal springs that bubble up through the rocks. Soon it'll be named for something else entirely. Every military mind in Greece said the same thing. You can't stop them. Not with 300 men. Not with 7,000. Not with any force the fractured Greek city-states can muster. The Persians have conquered everything from Egypt to India. They've never lost, and they're not about to start losing to a handful of Greeks in a mountain pass. Leonidas does something impossible. He plants his spear in the ground and refuses to move. What happens in the next 3 days will break every assumption about warfare, about numbers, about what's possible when men decide that death with honor beats life in chains. Persian chroniclers will call it the greatest military blunder in history. Greek historians will call it the moment that saved Western civilization. Modern strategists will study it for centuries and still struggle to explain how 300 men held off an empire. But here's what nobody tells you about Thermopylae. The battle was already lost before the first Persian died. Leonidas knew it. His 300 knew it. They came anyway, not to win, to buy time. 3 days, maybe 4 if they were lucky. Just long enough for the rest of Greece to wake up and realize that fighting was better than surrendering. So how did 300 Spartans and a few thousand allies turn a strategic delaying action into a legend that's lasted 2,500 years? The answer isn't what you think, and it starts with a decision Xerxes made 6 months earlier. A decision so logical, so strategically sound, that it guaranteed he'd win the war, but lose something far more valuable in the process. Before we watch the greatest last stand in military history, quick word. If you're the kind of person who gets pulled into these documented moments from the past, the ones that textbooks somehow forget to make interesting, subscribing helps us dig deeper into the archives and uncover more of these stories. Alright, back to August 480 BC, and the King of Kings is about to learn that some men don't care about the odds. Persia in 480 BC isn't just an empire, it's the empire, the largest the world has ever seen, stretching from the Indus River to the Mediterranean. 46 nations paying tribute to one man. Xerxes, the King of Kings, the great king, the ruler of more territory than any human being in history. And he's obsessed with one thing: revenge. 10 years earlier, his father Darius invaded Greece, got as far as Marathon before 10,000 Athenians did the impossible and beat back a Persian army 3 times their size. Darius died before he could try again. Xerxes inherited an empire and a grudge, and for 10 years he's been preparing. The Persian army that marches on Greece in 480 BC isn't just big, it's incomprehensible. Herodotus, the Greek historian who actually saw it, estimates 2 million fighting men, plus another 2 million support personnel. Modern historians think he's exaggerating. Maybe it was only 200,000, maybe 300,000. Doesn't matter. When you're defending with 7,000, 250,000 might as well be 2 million. The Persian fleet alone has 1,200 warships. The Greeks can barely scrape together 300. Xerxes has cavalry, archers, siege equipment, engineers who can build bridges across rivers in days. He has the Immortals, 10,000 elite warriors who've never tasted defeat. He has nations who send tribute just for the honor of not being conquered. He has everything except respect for his enemy. Across the Aegean, Greece in 480 BC is a catastrophe pretending to be a civilization. They're not a nation. They're 30 fractious city-states who hate each other almost as much as they hate outsiders. Athens and Sparta barely speak. Corinth and Thebes are constantly feuding. The idea of Greeks uniting for anything is a joke. But Persia changes the calculation, because even Greeks who despise each other understand what Persian conquest means. Not just military defeat, cultural erasure. The Persians don't just conquer, they absorb. Languages disappear. Gods get replaced. Entire peoples become footnotes in Persian administrative records. So the city-states do something unprecedented. They hold a conference, the Hellenic League. 30 cities send representatives to Corinth to discuss defense. The meeting is chaos. Everyone has opinions. Nobody wants to commit troops. Athens wants to defend by sea. Sparta wants to defend by land. Corinth wants someone else to do the defending. And then a Spartan stands up, King Leonidas. He's not the main Spartan king. Sparta has 2, a weird political arrangement nobody outside Sparta understands. But Leonidas has something the other king doesn't: credibility. He's been fighting since he was 7 years old. Survived the Agogsh, the brutal Spartan training system that kills half the boys who enter it. Led men in battle for 40 years. Leonidas says something that silences the room. We need to choose a place to fight, somewhere their numbers don't matter, somewhere we can bleed them. Thermopylae, the hot gates, a narrow pass between the mountains and the sea. At its narrowest point, maybe 50 feet wide, it's the only land route south into Greece. If the Persians want to march their army, they have to go through Thermopylae. There's no other way. The strategic logic is perfect. A small force in a narrow pass can hold off a much larger army. The Persians can't bring their cavalry to bear, can't flank, can't use their numerical advantage. They'll have to come straight at you, and in that confined space, 300 Spartans are worth 3,000 of anybody else. The Hellenic League agrees. Send a force to Thermopylae. Hold the pass until the main Greek army can assemble. Buy time, that's all. Just delay them long enough for the rest of Greece to get ready. Sparta sends Leonidas with 300 men. Just 300. Because it's the middle of the Carnea, a sacred festival where Spartans don't march to war. The Council of Elders, old men who've never seen the world outside the Peloponnese, says 300 is enough. It's just a holding action. The Persians probably won't even attack until after the festival. Leonidas knows they're wrong, knows 300 isn't enough, knows the Persians are coming now, not later. But arguing with the elders is pointless, so he does something brilliant. He doesn't recruit soldiers, he recruits fathers. Every one of his 300 has sons, living sons who'll carry on the family line, because Leonidas knows none of them are coming back, and he wants Sparta to survive even if they don't. August 1st, 480 BC. Leonidas marches north with his 300. Along the way, other Greeks join. 700 Thespians, 400 Thebans, 1,000 Phocians, another few thousand from various cities. Total Greek force at Thermopylae, maybe 7,000 men. They spend a week fortifying the pass, rebuilding an old wall across the narrowest point, setting up supply lines, sending scouts north to track the Persian advance, and waiting. The Persians arrive on August 10th. The Greek scouts see them first, report back to Leonidas with numbers that don't make sense. The army is so large, it takes 3 days for the entire force to assemble. The camps stretch for miles. The Persians don't even try to hide their strength. Why would they? They outnumber the Greeks by at least 30 to 1. Probably more. Xerxes sends scouts of his own. They ride to the Greek wall, expecting fortifications, defensive positions, signs of fear. Instead, they find Spartans outside the wall, exercising, combing their hair, getting ready for battle like they're preparing for a festival. The scouts report back to Xerxes. He doesn't believe them, sends for Demaratus, an exiled Spartan king who serves as his advisor. What are they doing? Demaratus explains. They're Spartans. They prepare for death the way other men prepare for dinner. Xerxes thinks it's hilarious. These Greeks are insane. He sends a herald to the wall with an offer. Surrender your weapons and you can leave in peace. Leonidas's response becomes immortal. Molon Labe, come and take them. August 11th. Xerxes waits. He's not stupid. He knows rushing a fortified position is costly, so he waits for the Greeks to panic, to realize the hopelessness of their situation, to abandon the wall and flee. He gives them 4 days to think about it, 4 days to stare at an army that could swallow them whole and not notice. The Greeks don't leave, don't panic. On the 4th day, Xerxes loses patience. He sends in the Medes, 10,000 warriors, infantry, the best Persia has outside the Immortals. They march to the wall in formation, shields up, ready to overwhelm the defenders through sheer mass. What happens next shouldn't be possible, but it is, and it changes everything. August 11th, 480 BC. The Medes hit the wall like a wave. 10,000 men packed into a space 50 feet wide, shields pressing forward, spears jabbing, war cries echoing off the mountain walls, and they die. Not slowly, not in some heroic, last stand, where both sides take casualties. They die fast, efficiently, like cattle being processed. Here's what you need to understand about Spartan warfare. Every other Greek city-state treats military training as something you do in your spare time. You're a farmer, a merchant, a craftsman who picks up a spear when the city calls. Spartans are different. They don't have jobs. They don't have crafts. From age 7 until death, they have one job: kill enemies of Sparta. The 300 at Thermopylae aren't soldiers. They're weapons in human form. Each one has been training for 53 years. Leonidas is 60. His youngest warrior is probably 40. These aren't kids playing at war. They're masters who've forgotten more about killing than the Medes ever learned. The wall is positioned perfectly. The Medes can't spread out, can't use their numbers. They're funneled into a killing zone where Spartan spears work like a threshing machine. First rank stabs, second rank stabs over their shoulders. Third rank waits for the first rank to tire, then rotates forward. Mechanical, methodical, merciless. The Medes push for an hour. Leave 2,000 dead at the wall. Retreat in chaos. Xerxes watches from his throne on a nearby hill. He reportedly jumps up 3 times in alarm as his forces collapse, sends in the next wave, then the next. By sunset, 10,000 Medes have attacked the wall. Maybe 4,000 are still alive. The rest are piled in front of Spartan shields like a wall built from corpses. Greek casualties, 2 dead, a dozen wounded. That night, the Persian camp is silent. You've just watched your elite troops get slaughtered by a force a fraction of their size. You're starting to understand that numbers don't matter in that pass, that you could send 1 million men, and the result would be the same: bodies piling up, Spartans standing firm. The math you relied on suddenly irrelevant. Xerxes holds a war council. His generals are shaken. The Medes were supposed to break through in an hour. Instead, they broke themselves against Spartan shields. What do we do? One general suggests bypassing Thermopylae entirely. Use the fleet. Land troops south of the pass. The Greeks can't defend everywhere. Xerxes refuses. I will not be defeated by 300 men. I am the king of kings. I will break them. August 12th, day 2. Xerxes sends in the Immortals, his personal guard. 10,000 warriors who've never lost a battle. Men chosen from birth for size, skill, ruthlessness. When an Immortal dies, he's immediately replaced, so the unit always numbers exactly 10,000. They're called Immortals because they never diminish. They march to the wall at dawn. Perfect formation. Not rushing, professional. These aren't Medes who've been thrown into battle with minimal training. These are the best Persia has. If anyone can break the Spartans, it's them. The Immortals hit the wall and discover something terrifying. The Spartans are better. It's not even close. The Immortals are good, well-trained, disciplined, but they've spent their lives fighting tribal warriors, conscript armies, enemies who break when you push hard enough. They've never faced anyone like this. Spartan shields interlock perfectly. No gaps, no weak points. The Immortals push and the line doesn't budge. They stab with spears and Spartan shields deflect every strike. They try to pull Spartan shields down and hands holding. Those shields don't tire, don't weaken, don't even seem human. And then the Spartans do something the Immortals have never seen. They fake a retreat. The front rank turns and runs. The Immortals, sensing victory, break formation and chase. It's a trap. The Spartans spin, reform ranks, and slaughter the pursuing Immortals, who are now bunched together, disorganized, easy targets. 300 Immortals die in 30 seconds. The rest fall back in shock. Xerxes tries again, sends the Immortals forward in waves, tries flanking maneuvers that can't work in a 50-foot corridor, orders massed arrow volleys that hit Spartan shields and accomplish nothing. By sunset, the Immortals have lost 1,000 men. The Spartans have lost 3. That night, Leonidas walks among his men. They're exhausted. 2 days of continuous combat. Arms aching from holding shields, hands cramping from gripping spears, but they're smiling because they've done the impossible. Held off Persia's finest for 2 full days. One of his men asks, "Sire, how long can we hold?" Leonidas looks at the mountains surrounding them. "As long as we need to. Every hour we stand here is another hour Greece prepares. We're not trying to win. We're trying to make them bleed." August 13th. Day 3. Xerxes is desperate now. He's lost thousands of soldiers. His Immortals are shaken. Morale in the Persian camp is collapsing. Men are whispering that the Greeks are protected by gods, that the pass is cursed, that no amount of warriors can break through. And then a Greek traitor appears, Ephialtes, a local man who knows the mountains. He comes to Xerxes with information that changes everything. There's a path, a goat trail through the mountains that loops around Thermopylae. It's narrow, difficult, takes hours to traverse, but it leads behind the Greek lines. Xerxes sends the Immortals, 10,000 men marching through the night along a mountain path barely wide enough for 2 men to walk side by side. They're led by Ephialtes, who's been promised gold and safety for his betrayal. The path is guarded. Leonidas isn't stupid. He posted 1,000 Phocians on the mountain to watch for this exact scenario. But the Phocians are militia, not Spartans. When they hear 10,000 Immortals approaching through the darkness, they panic. Some fight, most run. By dawn, the Immortals are behind the Greek lines. Scouts bring Leonidas the news. The pass is compromised. The Persians will hit from front and rear simultaneously. It's over. The delaying action has bought 3 days. That's all. Now it's time to retreat, save the army for the battles to come. Leonidas calls his allies together, releases them from their oath. "You've fought with honor. Now go. Tell Greece what happened here. Make sure the world knows we stood." Most of the Greeks leave, 5,000 men marching south while they still can. Survival over glory. Nobody blames them. They've done their part. 700 Thespians refuse to leave. Their commander says simply, "We came to fight Persians. There are still Persians here." 400 Thebans stay, though later accounts suggest they were hostages kept to ensure Thebes' loyalty. And of course the 300 Spartans, because Spartans don't retreat. The law is clear. Come back with your shield or on it. Victory or death. There's no middle ground. Leonidas knows what's coming. He orders the 300 to eat a full breakfast. "Tonight we dine in Hades," he tells them. It's not fatalism, it's certainty. They're going to die. The only question is how many Persians they take with them. The final battle doesn't happen at the wall. Leonidas orders his men forward, out into the open plain in front of the pass, because the wall is a defensive position, and defense is about survival. This isn't about survival anymore. This is about legacy. The Persians attack from both sides, front and rear, cavalry, infantry, archers. Everything Xerxes has. 20,000 warriors converging on 1,400 Greeks who've decided that dying in the open is better than dying behind walls. The Spartans form a circle, shields out, spears ready, and they fight, not trying to hold ground, not trying to retreat, just killing, mechanically, efficiently, until their spears break. Then they use swords. When their swords break, they use daggers. When their daggers break, they use shields as clubs. When their shields shatter, they use their hands. Leonidas dies early, killed by a Persian arrow. The Spartans retrieve his body, fight over it. 4 times the Persians try to take the body as a trophy. 4 times the Spartans drive them back. Men dying to protect a corpse because leaving a king's body for enemies is unthinkable. The fighting lasts hours. The Persians don't break through. They grind the Greeks down. Attrition, weight of numbers. Eventually, the circle gets smaller. Fewer Greeks standing. More bodies piled around them. Spartan and Persian both. The final Spartans retreat to a small hill. Maybe 20 men still alive. No weapons left, just rocks. They throw rocks at the Persians until the arrows block out the sun and finish them. By noon, it's over. Every Greek at Thermopylae is dead. The Persians have won. They control the pass. The road to southern Greece is open. Xerxes has achieved his objective. He walks among the dead, looking for Leonidas. When he finds the body, he does something that shocks his own men. Orders the head cut off and mounted on a stake. It's a violation of Persian honor codes. You don't mutilate the dead, especially not worthy enemies. But Xerxes is so enraged, so humiliated by 3 days of losses, that he abandons his own principles. Persian casualties at Thermopylae, 20,000 dead. Herodotus claims Xerxes was so ashamed he secretly buried 19,000 of them to hide the scale of losses. Modern historians think the number is exaggerated. Maybe it was only 5,000, maybe 10,000, doesn't matter. The King of Kings, commanding the largest army ever assembled, needed 3 days and thousands of dead to defeat 300 Spartans who were trying to lose. You've just watched the greatest delaying action in military history. Not because the Greeks won. They didn't. Because they fought so ferociously, bled the Persians so badly, that the entire character of the invasion changed. If that doesn't remind you how much 3 days of stubborn courage can reshape the world, then you're not paying attention to the lesson written in blood across that pass. Subscribe to Crimson Historians because these aren't just stories. They're warnings about what happens when human will collides with human calculation. But here's what no one tells you about Thermopylae. The Spartans died, and their death saved Greece. The news of Thermopylae spreads across Greece faster than the Persian army can march. 300 Spartans dead, every one of them. No survivors, no retreat. They stood and died and took 20,000 Persians with them. The reaction isn't grief, it's rage. Athens, which had been debating whether to evacuate or surrender, stops debating. They evacuate the entire city. Every civilian, women, children, elderly. They send them to offshore islands and prepare to fight. Not because they think they can win, because the Spartans proved that dying well is better than living as slaves. The Peloponnesian cities, which had been preparing to defend only their own territories, suddenly send troops north. Because if 300 Spartans can die for Greece, surely the rest of Greece can fight for them. The Persian advance slows, not because of military resistance, because of morale collapse. The army that marched into Greece expecting easy conquest now knows every mile will cost blood. The troops are terrified. They've never seen anything like Thermopylae, never faced enemies who choose death over surrender. Xerxes captures Athens, burns it to the ground, but it's a hollow victory. The city is empty, no population to subjugate, no wealth to plunder, just empty buildings and the knowledge that Greeks would rather flee than submit. 3 weeks after Thermopylae, the Persian fleet faces the Greek navy at Salamis. The Greeks should lose. They're outnumbered 3-1. But they remember Thermopylae. Remember what 300 men accomplished when they refused to break. The Greek triremes ram Persian ships like their personal enemies. Fight with a ferocity that terrifies Persian sailors who signed up for easy conquest, not suicidal enemies. The Persian fleet is destroyed. Xerxes, watching from shore, sees half his navy sink in a single afternoon. The invasion he spent 10 years preparing collapses in hours. He returns to Persia, leaving 100,000 troops to finish the conquest. They'll be defeated at Plataea the following year by a Greek army that still remembers Thermopylae. The epitaph placed at Thermopylae says it all. Go tell the Spartans, stranger passing by, that here obedient to their laws we lie. Not we won, not we were heroes, just we obeyed, because that's what mattered. They were ordered to hold the pass. They held it. The fact that holding it killed them was irrelevant. You don't measure success by survival. You measure it by whether you did what you were supposed to do. Leonidas becomes immortal. Not because he won, because he lost perfectly. Later Spartan kings will be judged against his standard. Did you fight like Leonidas? Did you inspire men to follow you into certain death? If not, you're not worthy of the throne. The 300 become legend. 2,000 years later, their story is still being told. Artists paint them, poets write about them. Military academies study their tactics, not because they were invincible, because they proved that courage matters more than numbers, that 3 days of resistance can change the course of history, that how you die can be more important than how you live. There's a statue at Thermopylae today. Modern, bronze, shows Leonidas standing with his shield and spear, staring north toward Persia. The inscription reads, "Come and take them." Thousands of tourists visit every year. Most of them don't know the real story. They know the movie version. 300 perfect warriors fighting endless hordes. They don't know that most of the 300 were middle-aged men, that they brought 7,000 allies, that they lost, that the entire strategic point was to buy time, not win glory. But they know one thing. They know those men stood when everyone said they should run. And that matters. Thermopylae teaches us something that terrifies modern military strategists, that sometimes the point of fighting isn't victory, it's messaging, showing your enemy and your allies what you're capable of, what you're willing to endure, what price you'll exact even in defeat. The Pentagon doesn't plan operations like Thermopylae, delaying actions where success means dying well. Modern warfare is about force preservation, about winning decisively with minimal casualties. We've forgotten that sometimes the battle you lose inspires victories you'll never see. Leonidas understood this. The entire strategy was theater, political messaging disguised as military action. He was buying time, yes, but more importantly, he was buying inspiration, showing Greece that Persia could bleed, that the King of Kings could be defied, that free men fighting for their homes were worth 100 conscripts fighting for an emperor's glory. There's a moment recorded by Herodotus. Before the battle, a Persian officer tells Leonidas that when the Persian archers fire, their arrows will blot out the sun. Leonidas's response: "Good, then we'll fight in the shade." It's the perfect encapsulation of Spartan philosophy. You don't fear death. You don't fear odds. You find the advantage in every situation, and you press it until something breaks. The Persians have so many arrows, the sky goes dark. Fine. Fighting in darkness favors the defender. You've just made our job easier. We live in an era obsessed with winning. Success measured by outcomes, by profit margins, by whether the line goes up. We've forgotten that sometimes the most important thing you can do is stand in the gap and refuse to move, even when you know it'll cost everything, especially when you know it'll cost everything. There's a quote attributed to Leonidas, though historians debate its authenticity. On the eve of battle, someone asks how 300 men can possibly defend against 2 million. Leonidas responds, "Because I brought 300 men who want to die for Sparta, not 2 million who've been ordered to die for Xerxes." It's brilliant because it's true. Every Spartan at Thermopylae chose to be there, chose death over retreat. The Persians were conscripts from 46 nations, fighting because they'd be executed if they refused. One side was dying for something they believed in. The other was dying because they had to. Guess which side fought harder? You've just witnessed 3 days that changed Western civilization. A moment when 300 men and a few thousand allies decided that buying time for Greece was worth more than their lives. If stories like this remind you how much belief can accomplish when mathematics says it's impossible, subscribe to Wacky History, because the past isn't dead. It's just waiting for someone to remember what it cost. And if you think Thermopylae is the greatest last stand in history, wait until you hear about the time 189 Texans held off 6,000 Mexican soldiers at a mission called the Alamo. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in our next finding.